Welcome class. In today's video I want to look at the difference quotient sum because I think that's an area that a lot of you will have some trouble. So the difference quotient is f of x, actually let's do f of a plus h minus f of a all over h. And it looks like an easy formula to remember, and it's not that hard to remember, but it becomes pretty tricky doing certain math problems. So for my first example, let's look at the difference quotient of x cubed, which is something that we didn't do in class. Okay, so for the first step, I want to do my f of a plus h, which is going to give me a plus h cubed. And this is actually just a plus h times a plus h times a plus h. And now we can FOIL this out. There actually is a formula for this, but I don't expect you to know that formula, so I'm not going to utilize that formula. So if we FOIL this, we'll get a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. And then we want to multiply that by a plus h. Alright, so then that's going to be a cubed plus a squared h plus 2a squared h plus 2ah squared plus ah squared plus h cubed. And with this, we have some like terms that I can combine. I have an a squared h here and an a squared h here, and a 2ah squared there and an ah squared there. So this is a cubed plus 3a squared h plus 3ah squared plus h cubed. Okay, so now that that's simplified all the way, let's go on to step 2. So step 2 says to take your f of a plus h and subtract f of a from it. So that's going to be my answer from step 1, which is a cubed plus 3a squared h plus 3ah squared plus h cubed minus my original function, which was x cubed, but with a plugged in. So that's going to be a cubed. Alright, if you'll notice, the a cubes will cancel. So I'm left with 3a squared h plus 3ah squared plus h cubed. Alright, now let's get ready for step 3. Step 3, we assemble the entire formula. So that's going to be what we had from step 2, all divided by h. So that's going to be 3a squared h plus 3ah squared plus h cubed, all divided by h. And if we notice on top, everything has an h in common. So that's going to be an h we can pull out. So that's 3a squared plus 3ah plus h squared, all divided by h. So now if we cancel the h's, I'm left with my answer, which is 3a squared plus 3ah plus h squared. And this will be my difference quotient. Remember, we are not finished until we cancel that h on bottom. Once we cancel the h on bottom, then we are good. Okay, so there's that one, and let's look at another one. Okay, so let's look at another example. Let's do x plus 1 over x minus 1. Okay, so this is a fraction, so it's going to be a little tricky, but maybe not too bad. So using my first step, that's going to be a plus h plus 1 over a plus h minus 1. So that's step 1. Step 1 is my f of a plus h step. And then step 2, this is where the fraction ones get tricky, because now we're going to have to do some things to it. So that's a plus h minus 1 minus a plus 1 over a minus 1. So now we're going to have to get a common denominator in order to do some canceling stuff. So I'm going to multiply the left fraction by a minus 1 over a minus 1. I'm going to multiply the right fraction by a plus h minus 1, which is my denominator on the other side. Okay, so on top I'll get a squared plus ah plus a minus h minus 1 over, I'm just going to leave it like this for right now. Because it's going to be the same over here. And we can deal with it in a minute, it's fine. Alright, so now on top I'll have a squared plus ah minus a plus a plus h minus 1. Alright, so now we can simplify. So I have an a squared minus a squared. I have an ah minus ah. I have an a minus a here that I can cancel, and an a minus a here that I can cancel. A negative 1 minus a negative 1 here, that cancels. But then I have a negative h minus h. So negative h minus h is going to be negative 2h over a minus 1, a plus h minus 1. Okay, so now we can go on to step 3, which is my f of a plus h minus f of a, and we're going to divide that by h. So notice that that's the same thing as multiplying by 1 over h. So I can say negative 2h over a minus 1, a plus h minus 1 times 1 over h, and see my h's will cancel, and I'm left with negative 2 over a minus 1, a plus h minus 1. And of course you could FOIL that out on the bottom, but for the sake of time I'm not going to in this video. Okay, so there's your difference quotient. Make sure you know how to compute these and do the formula and do the practice problems, because you really need to practice this concept some.